And I also hope that you are having a good day so far. All right, so in today's lesson, we'll be doing our grade 3 English lesson on contractions. So we'll be doing our grade 3 English lesson on contractions. And before we find out what contractions is, we're going to log into aplusstudents.ca. Once we've logged into aplusstudents.ca with our username as well as our password, and then we're going to select the subject of language arts, which is English. All right, so once we've selected the subject of language arts, and then we are going to scroll down up until we get to the chapter of contractions. All right, so our chapter is contractions, subject is English, which is language arts, grade 3, and the lessons that we are going to be focusing on today is pronoun verb contractions and contractions with not, right? So sometimes the words of the certain chapters sounds as if you've never heard it, but once we go into the lesson, then you'll actually be surprised that maybe you actually do know, because these contractions are actually words that we use almost every day, especially when we have informal conversations. All right. So we are doing our lesson on aplusstudents.ca. So if you do want to go back, recap, go over certain things, go over the lesson, here is our chapter, subject, grade, as well as the lessons on the board, and that is on aplusstudents.ca. All right, so we're going to start. So contraction. A contraction is a shortened form of two words, right? So contraction is a shortened form of two words. And an apostrophe shows where one or more letters are left out. Remember, when we use an apostrophe, we do not use an apostrophe with all of the letters that is being left out, right? We only use an apostrophe once, even though one or more than one letters are left out. For example, he is, right? So instead of constantly saying he is kicking the ball, he is running around, he is going to the shop, right? We can, for example, then say he's kicking the ball, he's running around, he's going to school, right? So, like I say, instead of us constantly having to say, so instead of us constantly having to say he he is going to bed, this is an example, right? We can then just say, choose a different color, then we can then just say, right, he's going to bed, right? So basically what happened was we shortened this words. Instead of saying he is, because now they're saying, remember, a contraction is a shortened form of two words. And this is the two words, he and is, right? So we are shortening that to make it like one word. So what we did was the apostrophe, it shows where one or more of the letters are left out. So which means that the I is going to be left out. And then we put an apostrophe in its place. So we leave out the I and then we put an apostrophe in its place. So it's like saying he, we take out the I, we put the apostrophe, and we leave the S. So instead of saying he is going to bed, we can say he's going to bed. All right. Another example, right, of our, let's look at the second example. She is, right? Instead of saying she is, we can say she's. Instead of saying she is, we say she's. So if we look at an example or make an example, we can say she is. She is playing alone, right? So she is playing alone. But if we shorten this two words, which is she is, right? And we add our apostrophe to show where one or more of the letters are going to be left out. So we're going to left out the I. And then if we rewrite those words, then we will say she, remember, we leave out the I, put the apostrophe S, then we say she's playing alone, right? So this we call contractions. We call this contractions, where we shorten this that I'm circling. That's where we have shortened two words, right? And we basically made it one word. It's like making it one word. However, we put the apostrophe to show where either one or more of the letters that we have left out, right? And we call that contractions. If we maybe look at another example, right? Let's say I am. Um, let's do this. Okay, that doesn't want to move. Let's remove it. Okay. Okay, so if we look at another example of maybe I am, right? So I am, and that is the same as saying I'm, right? So if we make an example of the contraction I am or I'm, and then we can say, for example, I am 10 years old, right? I am 10 years old. But now they say a contraction is a shortened form of two words, right? And it is shortening this two words. So then if we shorten that two words, right, and then we need to show the apostrophe where one or more letters are going to be left out, we're going to leave out the F, which is the A, right? So then instead of saying I am, we're going to say I'm. We leave out the A, right? And we just put the apostrophe and the M for I'm 10 years old. And this we call contractions, right? We call that contractions. Instead of saying I am, we say I'm. So instead of saying I am, we say I'm. Instead of saying she is, we say she's. Instead of saying he is, we say he's. Right? But now, if you look at this word, they, right? If we want to say they are, how are we going to write that in a form of contraction? How are we going to shorten these two words by also adding our apostrophe? And what words are we going to leave out? So they are. How do you think this is going to change? Or if we shorten that two words, right, into contraction by adding the apostrophe to show which words we're going to leave out, how are we going to write that word? Remember, we need to also add the apostrophe because the apostrophe need to show where the letters are left out. So you need to show your apostrophe also. So they are. All right, so if we find the contraction of they are, right? Remember, we're still going to keep this one word. So this word is still going to stay the same, right? So this word is still going to be they, right? Then we are only going to change the second word. So which means that we are going to leave out the A, right? We're going to leave out the A, we put the apostrophe there, and then we put the R and the E, right? So which means that that is going to sound almost like they are, right? It's like saying, instead of saying they are, they can say they are. It's almost like they are, right? But that means they are. The same with, if you look at that word, right? Remember, we only left out the A by R. But now, if they are is written like this, right? Then how are we going to write this word? We are. How are we going to write the contraction of we are? It's going to be similar to they are, like where the letter that was left out, that is the same letter that's going to be left out with we are. All right. So if we look at the contraction of we are, then it means that we are going to write we apostrophe re. So we left out the a and we put the apostrophe over there. So we are. So beautiful. Yes, so where is correct. So that is basically a contraction, right? And a contraction is a shortened form of two words, right? And we show an apostrophe where one or more letters are left out. And in this case, we basically showed where the letter was left out. And we left out the A in R, right? And then we put those words together. So beautiful. Where is correct? So well done. All right. So now we're going to a plus students.ca. So we're going to a plus students.ca where we are going to be doing our tutorial lesson. All right, so our chapter is contractions, right? And the lesson that we are the first lesson that we're going to be focusing on is pronoun verb contractions. All right. So we see that a contraction is a shortened form of two words, right? And an apostrophe shows where one or more letters are left out. Because remember, what we are going to do with contractions is we take that two words and then we basically, it's like we are creating one word, but the apostrophe is there, right? So we put the apostrophe almost like in between the two words, and then we create one word, right? However, one or more letters are going to be left out, and then we add the apostrophe in its place. But remember, we don't add an apostrophe if we don't add two apostrophes if two words or two letters are left out, right? We only add one apostrophe even though two letters or more letters are left out. All right. And a contraction can be formed from either a pronoun and from a verb, right? So, for example, your pronouns, instead of saying Jane is, or Carlo is, right? We can then say she is or he is, right? So the pronoun is either she, he, I, they, and our verb is the action, which is or are, right? So basically, a contraction can be formed from either a pronoun or basically from a pronoun as well as a verb. So now we are going to complete the sentence with the correct contractions. So we're going to look specifically at the words in brackets. We look at the words in brackets and then we are going to write down the contraction or the shortened words of those two words. This year, this year, they are going to Florida for a vacation. So this year, they are going to Florida for a vacation. We need to shorten or write the contraction of these two words. They are. They are. What is the contraction of they are? So they are. We need to write the contraction of they are. Yes. So if we write the contraction of they are, remember we said that the first word, the pronoun, right? It stays the same, right? So the pronoun, it stays the same. The word that we are basically going to change or that is going to shorten, right, is the verb, right, which is are or is, right? So they is going to stay the same. That's the full word that we're going to write down. Now we write down our apostrophe so long, right? And then the word that we are going to shorten with the letters that's going to be left out is, for example, the A in R. So we put the R-E. So there. So beautiful. So there is correct. So this year, they are going to Florida for vacation. So instead of us writing the full, they are, right? We write the contraction, which is there. So there is our correct word. So well done. That is correct. The girls are back from the library and they are hungry, right? And then once again, we have the same word, right? And we said that there is shortened, or the contractions for there is they, right? And we shorten the R by removing the A, putting our apostrophe, and writing the RE only. And there we have our shortened word, which is there, which is they are. But instead of saying they are, we can say there, right? And we have our, and a contract, this is our contraction that is formed by a pronoun as well as by a verb. All right, so now let's look at the new word, right? When it is quiet at night, I can hear owls. When it is quiet at night, I can hear owls. Remember, I said the first word stays the same. The second word, we remove either one or more letters, right? So it is. How do you think we will be able to write that word, it is, the contraction of it is? How will we be able to write that word, it is? All right. So if we write the correct contraction of it is, yes, beautiful, right? It stays the same, right? We then leave out the I, we put the apostrophe, and we just add our S. So we basically leave out or remove the I, put the apostrophe in its place, and we just add the S. So it is, it's the same as, or the contraction of it is it's. So well done. It's is correct. So well done. All right, so now we're going on to our test, right? Where we will look at our pronoun, verb, contraction. So we're going to complete the sentence with the correct contraction. We are interested in learning more about hawks and eagles. So we are interested in learning more about hawks and eagles. So we are. Does it mean it is we are? Is the contraction we are? Or is the contraction we are? We need to select the correct contraction. Is it we are, option one, or is it option two, which is we are? So here we have on the screen, right? We have we are, because this is we are interested. Remember, we are using an apostrophe, right? Yes, so we are. So which means that we are is still the full word, right? But the contraction is we are, where we have we apostrophe R and E. Yes, so well done. So we have we are. So we are is correct. So well done. All right, so when it is quiet at night, it is quiet at night. So we need to look at this word, it is. So when it is quiet at night, I can hear owls. So when it is quiet at night, I can hear owls. So it is the contraction it is, or is the contraction it's? Yes, and if we look at the shortened form of that word, remember we said it stays the same, and then we just shorten the verb, right? And by adding our apostrophe, so it's is correct. Remember, it's not it is, because it is still the full word. The contraction is the shortened form of that two words. So it's is correct. So well done. If you are, if you are going to the beach, may I come too? So if you are going to the beach, may I come too? So if we find the correct contraction, is it you are or you are? The contraction, is it you are or you are? All right. Yes. So remember, if we shorten these two words and find the contraction and we add an apostrophe by the words that is left out, remember, do not forget your apostrophe by the word or the letter that was left out, and then we will say it is your. Right? Remember, you need to add your apostrophe. If your apostrophe is not there, then it means that it is not a contraction. So your is correct. So well done. Kangaroos have strong back legs and they are fast hoppers. They are, right? We need to find the correct contraction of they are. Is it still they are or is it their? They apostrophe R E. So is it they are or their? All right. So if we select the correct contractions of they are, remember we said that the pronoun they stays the same. We remove the A, we put our apostrophe, and we put the RE. So the second one, yes, for they are, is correct. So well done. Awesome. All right, let's do the last one, and the rest you will do on your own. If she is not sitting in that seat, may I? If she is not sitting in that seat, may I? So is it she is or is it she's? So if she is or if she's not sitting in that seat, may I? So she is or she's. We need to find the correct contraction. She is or she's. All right. So if we now look at the or let's say we look at our options, right? They say if she is not sitting in that seat, may I, right? And then yes, we are going to select the second one, which is she's, right? Because it is the shortened form of that two words, which is she is. We said that we leave the pronoun she will stay the same. Remove the I, we put the apostrophe and we just leave the S. So she's. Well done. So she's is correct. Well done. Good job. All right. So before we go to contractions with not, right? Before we go to contractions with not. So a contraction, right? We said a contraction is a shortened form of two words. And we made an example of she is, and then we said our contraction is she's. And we made an example of he is, and we said our contraction is he's, right? I am, and then we have I'm, right? And then we have they are, then we have their, we are, and we have we're, right? But now we also, and then remember, we also add an apostrophe to show where one or more of the letters have been left out, right? And in most of the contractions with not, right, the apostrophe takes the place of the O. So now we are going on to our words with not, right? So instead of saying she is, we can, for example, use something different now. So now they're saying is not. So is not. We need to write the shortened form, right, or the apostrophe or the contraction, sorry, of is not. And they said that what we're going to do is we are going to, let's say, leave out the O, and we are going to put the apostrophe in the place of the O, right? So remember, we said that it is a shortened form of the two words. So these two words are going to become one word, but we are also going to add our apostrophe. And remember, we always said that our the first word, it stays the same, right? We're going to put our N. Remember, we said that we are leaving out the O, and in the place of the O, we put the apostrophe and the T. Yes, so isn't is correct. So that is our contraction, isn't, right? So we basically put all of those words, that two words, we're going to put together and make it into one word. But it's just that we're going to remove the O, and in place of the O, we put our apostrophe. All right. And if we look at a few examples of contractions with not, right? There we have one example that we just not did, which is not, and our contraction is isn't. Have not, which is haven't, right? Haven't, which means that our first word have stays the same, right? And then not is going to be in. We leave out the O, we put the apostrophe, and we put our T. So it's like saying have not, right? We write it as one word, but instead of writing have not as one word, we remove the O, and in place of the O, we put the apostrophe, and we make it into one word, which is haven't. Yes, lovely. Then we have are not, right? And our contractions of are not is aren't, right? Which is are and not basically joined, right? Making into one word, right? But instead of also writing the O for not, we remove the O, and in place of the O, we put the apostrophe. Then we have had not, which is hadn't, was not, which is wasn't, do not, which is don't. And don't is a common word that we mainly use, right? Yes, you are also correct. Aren't is correct. Are not, right? And we have were not, right? So we were not at the soccer practice. We were not at soccer practice. So instead of saying we were not at soccer practice, you can say we weren't at soccer practice, right? So instead of saying, for example, yeah, do not, don't, right? So instead of saying do not jump on the bed, right? We can then say that two words we join together, do not. Instead of putting our O, we put our apostrophe and the T, which means that that is a silent O that is there. So don't jump on the bed, right? So instead of saying do not jump on the bed, we say don't jump on the bed, right? Yeah, so don't is correct, right? So even if you look at let's say didn't, right? Did not and didn't, right? So instead of saying I did not do it, right? So I did not do it, right? Then you can join these two words, right? Then we can say I didn't do it, right? Yes, and didn't is correct. So well done, right? So well done. That is correct. So also when it comes to contractions, right? Then we have can't and we have won't, right? And can't and won't is different, right? So sometimes even though we think that can't and won't is the same, it is not the same. It is different. And the apostrophe in can't, it takes the place of two letters, right? Which is the N as well as the O. Because remember, we said a contraction is a shortened form of two words, right? And we can basically either remove one or we can remove more than one letter, right? And then we put our apostrophe there. And in won't, right, three letters disappear and the O changes position, right? So if we look at cannot, look at cannot. It's like saying can and not, right? So cannot is like saying can and not. So cannot, if we write the contraction or shorten cannot, right, and then we write can't, which is can. It's like that word can. Now we are leaving out the N and the O, right? And then we put the apostrophe in its place and we add our T. And remember, as much as two words have been left out, right? As much as two words have been left out, you don't put two apostrophes. You only add one apostrophe. So it is can't. Then we have will not, right? Cannot is usually when you say you are struggling to do something. It's like you're doubting yourself. It's like I cannot do something. I cannot complete the work, right? I cannot. It's almost like saying you're not brave enough, right? I cannot do it. But will not is like refusing something, right? And that is why we say those two words are different. And then we have will not. And as you can see, how will not actually changes, right? It changes to won't, right? It changes to won't. It's like basically the positioning of those letters, it changes. All right. So now let's go back to A plus students.ca and contractions with not, right? And we see the contraction is a shortened form of the two words, and the apostrophe shows where one or more of the letters are left out, right? For example, the sailors are not leaving until early tomorrow morning. Are not. If we look at that word are not, how are we going to write that into the how are we going to write that with the correct contraction? Are not. We need to write the contraction of are not. All right, so if we write the contraction of are not, remember we also need to add the N, right? Also need to add the N because remember we're only removing the O or leaving out the O and we're putting the apostrophe in place of the O, right? So we leave the R there. We add the N for not, but we're not going to write the O. We put the apostrophe in its place, and then we write the T. So that's aren't. So the sailors aren't leaving until early morning. Yes, well done. Dad said his phone is not working. Is not working. How do you think we will be able to write is not? Yes, aren't is correct. And is not. Remember we said that the first word stays the same? By not, we remove or we leave out the O and we put the apostrophe in its place. Yes, so if we write Dad said his phone is not working, right? And then we can say isn't, which is not. Instead of writing the O, we remove the O, we put the apostrophe and we put out T, so isn't. Yes, so well done, isn't is correct. And before we end off, let us just go to our test. All right, so we're going to complete the sentence with the correct contraction. Mom and dad. This is supposed to be were not, right? This is supposed to be were not surprised when Annie left early. So mom and dad were not surprised when Annie left. Is it were not, weren't, or weren't? It's like saying were not. Which option is correct? Yes, well done. So the third option, were not for weren't, is correct. So well done. Good job. Josie was not finished with her story about horses. So was not, is it was not or wasn't finished with her story about horses? So weren't was correct. So was not, is it was not or wasn't finished with her story about horses? All right, so if we choose the correct contraction, we can say wasn't. And wasn't is correct. So well done. Next to the last one. Maggie is not the only one who forgot her notebook. Is it is not or isn't the only one who forgot her notebook? Option 1 or option 2? So is not or isn't the only one who forgot her notebook. So if we choose the correct contraction, then we can say isn't, right? All right. So that is our lesson on contractions, right? And we said contractions is like the shortened form of two words, right? So we're basically joining that two words and we're making it into one word, right? But when it comes to us making it into one word, then we remove either one or more letters, and the one or more letters that we remove, we add the apostrophe or we put the apostrophe in its place. And a contraction is formed by a pronoun as well as a verb. All right, so thank you very much, grade 3, for being part of the class. Thank you very much for being interactive and for involving yourself, for giving all the answers, all right? And I really hope you're going to have a good day further. Goodbye.